What's going on? I am getting ready to do my submission for the Akash Sovryn projects. I'm going to do the Akash Sovryn Node Challenge and the Decentralization Node Deployments Infrastructure Challenge here. What we've got going on here is building on the Sovryn Node forked from the official repo. What I've done is basically containerized it to an, let's see here. Okay, I kept this one on the development branch of this fork. I'm merging too many projects together in my brain. Yeah, so what I've done here, I built this Docker file a little while back. This is basically from the original Sovryn cache integration I did back that got this whole thing started. Anyway, um, I copy in these instead of filling them out manually. I just have them, I created them here, and they're just populated by environment variables that allows us to, when you run it locally, you can use a .env file, or when you push it out to a cache, which we'll see here shortly, they get populated. They're GitHub secrets. So if we look at our settings, everything's automated from end to end. Once code is pulled in or pushed to development, right now this is the way I've got it working. It triggers. So if we look at the workflows, it triggers the CI action. The CI action, which is called CI build, that name comes in important later. On the push to development, we basically build and push to Game Cajun Sovryn Node out there on the hub.docker.com. Now, once that's done, we have this CD action, which triggers when here's where I said that name was going to come important. We have the CI build that gets triggered on completion of that CI build. We run this continuous deploy. This continuous deploy is basically a heavily modified workflow from the end-to-end production testing repo that Akash has. I basically changed just a little bit of code in the main.go file there. It's forked over here on this repo. I was originally using this one to also push out code, but I didn't want to be relying on a repo to push another's code. So what I ended up doing is it was working great for the Sovryn Tour project, but I wanted to also extend this functionality, the auto deployment to a cache, to basically any project that you can imagine. Whatever. It's kind of like running container, Kubernetes, although all this will become kind of a mute point when we can actually schedule a cache nodes as worker nodes on a K8s attached to a master K8 stack or something. Anyway, really cool though. What we do, we run it Ubuntu latest. That's a GitHub thing. But you can tell it. Basically, it's D&D, Docker and Docker. It's going to fetch this Akash E2E runner. So all this is a built version of this repo here. And we can see that code right here. So what am I doing here? I get the 116. This is hard coded. They have it in a make RC file here, just 116, 116.3. I get that. I just get 116 latest on Buster. It's just the Debian variant. We copy in the Go mod. It installs the module dependencies, whatever, copies in the source, runs make on it. So this is a multi-stage build. That way we can, I'm a big fan of, especially when you're doing like Go, where you're deploying like a single binary, we can toss it in another container. I'm using Ubuntu in this case, also installing the Akash CLI. Work directory is kind of a mute point because what I end up doing here, I do copy on the E2E binary, and then I move it into user bin, just make it easier to access later. So then what happens is this particular action is going to pick it up. It'll check out the code. Sorry if you can hear all those clicks on my mouse. We import a key. So this is basically a reworked version of the Sovryn Node project, which still functions using its own repo and then using the E2E to deploy it, because under E2E I have manifest. This one deploys the Sovryn Node project, which is completely different. But I'm just showing how now the direction I've taken it now just allows you to basically use this container, and as long as you have a few variables, and we'll get into those here shortly, secrets in GitHub set. We'll open this up over here. Secrets. So for deploying on a cache, you have to have a few things done. You have to have your certificate. If you're basically, if you, I say basically a little bit. If you create a new address and you have a certificate, it basically, there you go, needs to be recorded on chain. So there's a function that whenever you try to create the cert, it says it exists, checks the on chain. If it's not there, it'll record it. After that, all you need is you put the deploy cert, which is you just cat the PM file for your address, and you put it in here. Deploy key is the Tendermint key, where when you can do an export on whatever key that you're trying to use, and the token, which is the tokens, probably better said like key password. It's the encrypted password you gave it to export your key. That being said, once you have those three things, you're pretty much golden to roll this out. As you can tell, we got these environment variables. I'm pulling these off of the E2E production repo from Overclock here. The most of this is arbitrary, doesn't really matter. Gas, auto, adjustment, prices. I haven't needed to change those at all for most things. If I'm running locally, I end up changing them because I'm running out of gas on like sending a transaction or something. But it's never failed for deployments. It was like when I was trying to send, as a matter of fact, when I spun the Sovryn Node up, I was trying to use the gas prices, I think, was getting in my way of actually sending a transaction. So if you just export it, make it empty or something, and then specify your own gas, it was working. Anyway, the rest of this is, like I said, arbitrary. The from just names the key locally, like whenever it gets down here. So here we deploy the key, or use the deploy key into a file just so we can import it. We use the deploy token, which is the password that was used to encrypt it. As you can tell, I'm using test. Someone else could probably give me better direction. I'm using test because I think it avoids some issues with having to input passwords whenever we go to run commands later. Now, if that's true or not, I think I tested it. I think what test does is basically store your private key, the key that it imports here, in plain text. So I wouldn't run this, especially locally. I don't inherently see an issue with it in the automated stack here, but would definitely like some input on that. Key versus OS versus file, things like that. If you do the file or something, you'll be piping the secret just like this every time you try to run a command, from what I can understand. Anyway, moving on. So you have those two things, and then you import the certificate. Once you got that done, it's going to close. So this is a job to keep your requested resource live on a cache. It works very well. So the main thing that this will do, this particular one, like I said, close all active deployments. It'll loop over any active deployment. So if you're running 1, if you're running 10, whatever, it'll run through those and close them. And then what happens here is, here's where we mess with the manifest locally. So I'm using sed, which just looks, it searches for that particular phrase right there in between those two pipes, and then keeps it replaces this bit with whatever was there, and then the secret in this particular file. Once that's done, we say, I don't know, I left the running test, but could totally be named something else. So here's where the E2E came in when we built this earlier. So Docker file. So you can go dive this container or something and look at it too. The only thing that really exists in this container, other than being a flat Ubuntu file, I do this, which if you're trying to minify the container, you probably should clean up after that. But otherwise, this right here, the move to use a bin, allows us just to call it E2E. It does, so you don't really matter about pathing. I was using an entry point file, entry point.sh type file, like I don't have an example right off. Anyway, so grabs the manifest. So this is my addition to the E2E code that was built by Overclock. The skip teardown flag, basically it skips the Akash. So there's a directive in that main.go. If we go look at it real quick, so we're on the same page. So skip teardown. So this is basically my addition. I ain't done much here, and took me a while I had to do a little bit of deep dive on Go just to get up to date with the whole concurrency and running things and stuff. I'm still learning. Anyway, added this flag so it does skip this. It logs skip and deployment close. That way, this thing can run. The reason why I like this tool is because I was going to build one of my own. As a matter of fact, I fired up. I was going to do it in Go because I knew, Cache writes stuff in Go, and I was like, probably pretty seamless integration if I can write it in Go. And then I ended up finding that E2E production testing. I was like, hold up, I'll just modify this. Anyway, so that's what I've done. And so this job just runs through all this, and we'll get that container running. So we can look at like our actions here. We can see that the development, when the development was done, so it builds. It pushes it, build and push Docker image, down here. So once it pushes out, go back to summary actions. This one got triggered, and then so you can look through each one of the things. So we don't need this one. We can look at the key. What happens here? It echoes this to that particular file and does the import. We saw that already. Imports the certificate. Like we said, pulls that in, it closes all deployments. There you go. Let's see here, gas estimate. So did this one? I'm looking at this code space because I'm looking at this, wondering actually, did it close them? I guess it did. There's only one running, so it had to close it. I don't know. I need to look into that a little bit more. I'm still learning. So here's where we modify the cache deployment YAML. We have so this is specifically for the Sovryn Node. This is not the tour keys. I'll break that one down in the other video. I just copy and pasted that, and that got picked up. So and we got the whole running thing. So here's where we run the sweet E2E, modified E2E binary from overclock. I keep saying overclock. Oh, I hope that's right. I want to say overkill, but which while might be a better name, I don't know. Anyway, it runs. The what I like about this tool is it does exactly what I'm looking for. It creates the deployment, waits for the where bids, grabs the like I don't care about bids. Like I don't want to sit here and like fish through a bunch of bids. In essence, I want the cheapest bid, right? I mean, like if I was worried about providers, which I already am, the providers are already signed off because that's in my cache deployment manifest. So grabs the winning bid, sets up the TX and sends off my deployment manifest, and then it just waits. So I mean, well, obviously you get a little bit of wait time in there involved. You're waiting, and look at that. Lease ready, boom. So if we get this now, and I'm sure since this is an action, you could probably fish this off and probably just Discord message it to yourself or whatever. But if we hit that up, it loads up. So it's up and running. It would update on its own. Let's say I was to pull in some new code from Distributed Collective here. It would update and roll out entirely on its own. The only time that really, as a matter of fact, all the Akash edition was most of the new stuff. Other than maybe changing the way the process, I didn't really have to do much. And there's no code changes. As a matter of fact, there's the only thing I do is I add a couple of files in there that are using environment variables for this to work. Then you call off. So like if you need to do the approve part, that's not set up right now. I did have I was trying to do some conditional switching, like so you could start the container, but why would you just do the approve function? This is particularly to the Sovryn Node, where it's basically recording your agreement to automatically spend create transactions, I guess, on the blockchain. So you would just run that approve function. You do that locally. You could do it inside this same container. I would just run this particular the Sovryn Node container that we ship out. Whatever container, I forgot. It's Gambit Cajun's Sovryn Node on Docker Hub. You could run that one in Bash and then do the import all your variables and then do the approve there too. Anyway, long video. I'll spend a lot of time trying to perfect this one, and basically it's hands off. In other words, we get an update from Sovryn Node, and it goes all the way to cache production, and that's what I was aiming for, like simplicity. It does feel still kind of busy, but not near as busy as what it used to be. So it's just like once you have your environment variables set up, it's and your actions are set up, it's fairly hands off. I like separating CI/CD type actions. The one thing I would do maybe after CD, and we'll see this if you continue on dig into my Sovryn Tour project, which is where I learned a lot of what I did here, although I built on it quite extensively, getting this the Akash and the E2E runner going specifically for this project. But now I can literally use this to deploy anything. It doesn't matter if it's a container. You can deploy it on a cache, with this, assuming you had money in the bank. All right, I'm going to end it there on this one. Can't think of nothing else. Questions, comments, let them roll in. I'd love to hear from anybody interested in this kind of stuff, especially if you got improvements, critiques, whatever. Yeah, let's do it.